the refi for 15 years now. 2.375.
I'll make an appointment to come in.
Just really revenue management. Wow.
That's the treatment. Yeah, it feels like someday those roosters will come home to, or the chickens will come home to roost. Inflation problem.
It's terrible. Data transfer. It's 141K.
I hear you. Savings account is really
Yeah, but it's better than losing.
1% better for you.
Yeah.
Momentarily. Ready to go. We're recording. Good evening. I'd like to, is that working? Is it? No, usually I can hear it. I can't hear it. So, good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the regularly scheduled Nisswa City Council meeting. It is Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. It is 7:02 p.m. Would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, good evening, everyone. First on the agenda this evening is the consent calendar.
Move to approve. Second.
Get that, Jonathan? Okay. Any discussions on the motions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is C, open forum. It is time for the public to ask any questions of the council or seek some feedback about something that is not on our agenda this evening. Is there anyone here who would like to do so? Seeing none, we'll close that open forum and move on to reports. First on the list is the city administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor Heidman. Good evening, members of the council. The only item I have to update you on tonight, that's not an item that will be discussed later on our agenda, is just to share, and I believe I shared this with the council, but that our city was able to achieve step 3 designation in the Green Step Cities program. We're the only city in our area to do that. So we are pretty proud of that accomplishment. And we just officially received that kind of designation in June, I believe. And thanks to Brittany for kind of taking over on this one, because I think we're already doing a lot of great things, and it was just a matter of documenting and recording it, and now we get some recognition for it. So just wanted to give you that update. Otherwise, I have nothing else unless you have questions.
Just a thank you to Brittany for continuing to pursue that and bring the city along and keep us moving forward. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Very good. Next is the city attorney.
Thank you. The only thing I've got besides a couple things coming up on the agenda later, but is a brief report on the status of that Nelson Ford lawsuit that the city was one of the parties to regarding the squad car overcharging. That case got dismissed on summary judgment at the district court level. It's now at the Court of Appeals. It's sort of a long story about why it got dismissed, but essentially there was a prior proceeding that really dealt with that matter. And so the ruling at the district court level was that it already had been dealt with. And so that's under appeal. That process usually takes quite a lengthy amount of time. I'll continue to track it as I have, dig through from time to time. Ultimately, probably, I'd say 6 months down the line, we'll have some sort of result from the Court of Appeals, and then we'll know if there's anything for the city in that.
Okay.
Nothing else from here unless you've got questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Next is the city engineer, Mr. Hallen.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple items. Coordination with the utility companies is continuing on the bridge project on Hazelwood. Was going into that's Freeport and Freeport Works Department. That is still, scheduled to start the week of August 3rd. And then with the 2020 street improvements, once the bridge project schedule is firmed up a little better towards that, and we also know the county scheduled for finishing up the 13 work, and we will also schedule the pre-construction conference for the 2020 street projects, which are Smiley Road South and East. So that was it. That'll be starting probably next week. We'll know that, and then staff will be informed of that. And then let's say the other couple items we have are, under new business. So, any questions for me? All right,
Thank you. Moving on, new business. Item E1, recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission regarding ordinance amendment for storage structures. Brittany, would you like to say a few words about that?
So as I'm sure you all recall, we put a moratorium on commercial storage units back in September of 2019. The Planning Commission has looked at about 8 drafts at this point, and so this is the recommended draft for your approval.
Okay.
I can certainly answer any questions as well.
Okay. Has the council given any feedback on this previous to tonight?
Yes, at the last meeting, they said to go back and hold a public hearing, which we did last week. And they said they did not want to abolish them in the city, but they wanted it difficult to cite them. And that's what we did in the Planning Commission.
Okay. Comments from Brittany? Do you have comments about, do you feel this does this accomplish what the Planning and Zoning Commission is looking for?
I believe it meets their intent. I have gotten feedback just from one council member that this is not necessarily believed to be the city's intent though. So it kind of depends on if you guys do want to make it more difficult or if we want to kind of ease away from the regulations a little bit. I'm comfortable with the draft that's presented. However, if there are some modifications, I can look at that as well.
Question I have kind of for the council would be a reason for not just looking to follow kind of the recommendation as to just not allow them. What was some reasoning for that?
Well, the Planning Commission has had a couple approved over the last 2-3 years. And when they're actually up there in the eyes of the commission, they're kind of an eyesore where they're cited and how they're cited and the screening and everything else. And it was decided after looking at several different ordinances around the country and around Minnesota, how other cities handle them. It got to be very complicated and to go ahead and allow them. So the original thing that came to the council was, no, we don't want any in the city at all, no more. And the council turned that down and said, no, go back, give it another look. We do want them, but we wanted to make them more difficult to cite than they are now, which resulted in this document that you have in front of you now. It's more difficult, but it's not impossible to cite them. There was discussion about that on the commission level, and the decision was, yeah, we think this is the best way to go now, and we'll try and make it work.
Make it work to allow them or make it work to not allow?
Make the ordinance, which is in front of you, make that work.
Gary, your thoughts? I mean, I just would like to hear what the council thinks about it. I've heard some feedback here and there, and I'm just curious what each individual council member's thoughts are about it and kind of why it got sent back and so on.
Well, I don't know that we want to just eliminate them altogether. I don't know that I'd be in favor of that. I think these changes that the P and Z Commission came up with it's acceptable. Makes it a little more difficult, but still allows them.
I'm kind of on the same page as Gary. I was at the P and Z meeting, and I think with the proposal in front of you, there's, what is it, with the 1,000-foot variance, it only narrows it down to like 2 sites left.
2 sites in the open space residential, which I think is probably where they would end up. That
Yeah.
does leave some highway business available, but that does come with a heftier price tag. So they probably would end up in open space residential, I would imagine.
So it's, even though we're restricting it heavily, it's probably never going to happen. But
You mentioned, John?
Well,
I mean, I'm not looking for why anybody was for or against it, just some of the reasoning that went into it.
well, I'm against what they have drafted. I spoke with Brittany about it and told her that. I think we're too restrictive. There's people that have property that they could put up a storage building if they wanted to, or multiple storage buildings. You never even know it was there. But they can't because they're going to be within 1,000 feet of a home, even their own home. And that was a question that I had. And then I also think that what's going to happen is we're going to continue to grow as more people retire, more people decide they can work remotely or whatever. They're going to change that cabin to a year-round residence. But they're not going to have enough room to put up a storage building on their own property. So where do I store my toys? And what I'm seeing is we don't want you to store your toys in town. We want you can go somewhere else and store the toy, so to speak, or, people that, and then even in the ones where if you're screened like the ordinance is asking for, I still can't, I can't park my RV there and then leave it outside because probably not going to have a storage building big enough for some of these RVs. I can't park that there. And when I go back to my cabin after coming back from Arizona, pull my boat out or put the snow, whatever. I just had some questions. I had some problems with that aspect of it. So.
Okay.
But just to address something that John said, I don't think this prevents anybody from building a storage unit on their own property, their own, like a pole barn.
Right. They may not have enough property to do it because some of these lots aren't big enough to do it.
But this is commercial use only, not personal use.
Well, if I want to rent a building, if I want to rent from them and I have a place where I can park my snowmobiles, put my boat in the winter and pull my snowmobiles out, et cetera. I see a greater need for storage buildings down the road, 20, 30 years from now. And I think this is just too restrictive in some of its languages and stuff. And I think that we should look at it a little further. That's my perspective.
Okay, thanks. Brittany, you'd mentioned commercial business district.
Yep, highway business or, yeah, that one.
Well, my question is, it seems to me that that's the area that we're battling with the most, is the potential for the highway business district to be built up with storage units and look like an industrial park as opposed to something else. So my biggest concern is the highway commercial business district. Because that's the main street of Nisswa, so to speak, is that area coming through town. And I don't know that many people have opposition to storage units that are tucked away or in a more of an industrial area. But it's the residential, commercial business district and then residential. I mean, I think those are the areas in my way of thinking that are the most needed of protection, so that we don't get residential areas looking like storage units, and we don't have Highway 371 looking like, 3,000 unit storage facility that probably really needs to belong in an industrial park. So
Yeah, we did spend probably the most time talking about the zonings and which options we were willing to consider. Unfortunately, we don't have any kind of an industrial zoning.
Right.
Really, all that we have is central business, which I think we can all agree that, first off, we couldn't put them anywhere, and we probably don't want them down there. And then we have 3 different residential zonings, and then we have highway business. So our options were very limited on where we could put them. We took into consideration that I think it's a pretty safe bet that no resident wants to live right next to one. So that's where we kind of got into the distancing line item there. But it definitely was a very big concern for us on the zoning.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Council? Motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the commercial storage unit ordinance as presented and authorize the clerk to print a summary ordinance.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Hoff. Any discussion on the motion?
Don, would you consider 500 feet versus 1,000, or are you going with 1,000?
There's not that much difference when you look at the map between the two.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'm opposed.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brittany. Item E2, bid results for the wastewater treatment facility project. Mark, would you like to, do you have something you want to present, or? Sometimes
Please, go
sometimes I don't know which one of you want to do
We got this.
do the talk.
Yeah, I'm just going to make sure you have the addition E2 that was left for you there. So, and then Mark can speak to the bids that we opened on Monday.
All right, thank you. So Monday afternoon here at City Hall, the city received 5 bids for their wastewater treatment facility expansion that you've been planning and working on, I'll say for at least a 4-year period. So the 5 bids are received. One was quite high. 4 bids were down there in the, typical experience range of what the engineer's estimate. I did send the city a revised city engineer's estimate on Friday before last week for the bids based on the addendums that were sent out, the questions and decisions that we made for the project. So they say that engineer's estimate was just under 4.5 million, and the bids you received range from just under 4.2 million up to 5.3 million. You see, it's not bidders 2 and 3, and $30,000 of each other. So they looked at it very similar, and and I knew Eagle Construction was going after hard. Brandon worked the whole weekend. He told me he wished he hadn't, because he changed his number quite a bit from Friday to Monday down. But anybody said, I'm growing up, that's being a contractor. So I just checked. We had to check. Did you make any visual mistakes or anything? And no. So their bid is good. And I'll just let you know, they did actually team with. Because we didn't receive a bid from Block Construction, who actually skipped the cluster projects out there. They were at the pre-bid meeting, and they had documents and questions, but I do know that through Brandon McEagle that they will be working with Block Construction on a lot of the first bids. So, which is good to see, that they kind of teamed, and Block's very efficient at moving first material and putting it in PVC lines. So that's part of the reason they're, you know, a little under, you can see, I think they're bid being 10% under bidders 2 and 3. So that's part of the reason they put a good package together to the city to submit that bid.
Okay,
I guess I'll move to approve the bid for the wastewater treatment facility as presented for Eagle Construction.
Second.
discussion on the motion or any clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just want to say thank you, Mark, for all your work on this and great estimating on this big project. So the bids turned out really great.
Well, it was good. It's a big project and over a longer period of time, contractors like that, you know, this was also the lift station 3 that's coming up next, but, you know, that was, you know, so that was good. We had like these 3 bidders that really worked out pretty hard and so we have that information. They say Gail did send in the revised bid numbers now to the PFA, so that went into Mary Jean Schultz to St. Paul today. You know, we have that information, staff getting is aware of that, so we can put bid numbers, we put the actual land costs in, and I did finalize our design contract with the cities and village last Friday, so that's when we'll change. So we have those set costs, so, you know, that is now on the, you know, the PFA. And actually based, you know, on the, we had a $300,000 land acquisition number placeholder, well, that ended up, you know, a little over $50,000 less. So remember, it's always our number now going into the PFA, you know, it's actually about $150,000 less than the number we had tentatively budgeted back in January. Because one, the bid's a little bit lower than the engineer's estimate, and we spent less on land than, you know, budgeted. So,
Okay,
all right.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
we will then move on to item E3, which involves city engineer once again. Recommendation on bids received for lift station 3.
And there is a revised item in your, hopefully you received that in your packet. Tom made it pretty clear at the top, and I will let Tom take this one.
As the letter points out, we got our bids for lift station 3 and they were quite a bit higher than the engineer's estimate, as Mark alluded to also. We had some alternates on that project, hoping to get some extra work done around the city related to the sewer. For instance, alternate 3 would have been to put a backup generator and a new panel at station 1. Because the bids came in quite a bit higher, we looked at the alternates and what can we postpone or do at a different time. And so basically what we want to do is have Aspen build lift station 3. Alternate 2 would place a line across from West Linden to East Linden where lift station 3 will be built. And what that does is allows more flow to go by gravity to lift station 3 as opposed to coming from lift station 4, which is currently on West Linden, pumped across. It makes a more efficient operation. The other alternates, I'm recommending that we don't do at this time. We did get a quote for it's under item 3 for replacing manholes that are wearing out due to hydrogen sulfide. I did get a quote today that would put, shoot. Anyway, it's for $34,000 to rebuild those or to replace those manholes, excuse me. There's some question about dewatering on that we have to clear up on that quote. But I think right now I would recommend that we do replace those. In the letter, I recommend that we would just reline the existing manholes, but I think I would prefer to replace them so they last another 30 years again. the relining, I think, would have a shorter lifespan. So, does anybody have any specific questions regarding the Lift Station 3 project?
So I do have a question, but I don't know that. Oh, go ahead, you go first.
No, I have more of a question for Jenny. That's a lot of money to spend. The
Yes.
money in the fund, we have the cash.
We do. We have, as of our audited financials end of last year, we're at 1.7 million unreserved funds in the sewer fund. We wanted to wait until we got the bids back from the sewer expansion project to see where that landed. And with that, the other piece to that is that we will have a much more favorable interest rate for that. So we will save about $600,000 on our interest cost for the expansion project. So spending a little bit more money on this, I think the timing is really good for Lift Station 3 to get that done. And a couple of these other projects, I think would be wise to do.
And doing it this way is going to solve your problem.
Well, what the issue is the growth obviously around Grandview. And we're soon going to be up against a lift station that can't handle the flow in a normal year. If it wouldn't have been for COVID, we probably would have been right up against the capacity of Lift Station 3 as it exists today.
Okay. So, I know, the relining concept, and this is maybe something more for Mark, but, gosh, it seemed, and not, I guess it's more just thinking than it is applied to this, but it seemed like they'd be getting to a point where they'd have some sort of a plastic liner that they'd be able to put in and.
It's a sprayed in epoxy is what it is.
Epoxy is what they
Yeah.
use. Okay. So it makes a difference. Any thought that, and I not necessarily looking to make it a longer, pushing this out farther, but any thoughts that next year would be a better year for bidding and get a more favorable price?
We talked about that, Mark and I did. It seems like costs never go down. Labor costs rise, material costs rise.
So with that being said, Tom, and is the reason, is there a consensus as to why it's more? I mean, it's a busy year, the project is in too compact of a time frame? Is it fear of the virus? I mean, what's driving it to be so much higher?
Well, the first time we bid it, it was the virus and materials availability. There is some concern with some of the contractors that had bid this regarding dewatering in the area. Just the traffic and sensitivity of that area too, I think is causing a higher price than maybe other areas would see if they were getting the same project.
Is there anything that the city can do to mitigate that or assure them or give them a time frame when it's after Labor Day or something?
Well,
like that?
this would proceed after Labor Day, so
Okay, I'm just
there's not much we
asking the
can do.
questions.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just, we have talked about it. We've bid it twice. One item Mark brought up with this is there's going to be some bidder fatigue if we tried to bid it again. It's the same project. What's different about it? Nothing. Some of them are going to say, heck, I bid on this twice already. I'm just not interested in it. So
Sure.
It's very, just, Tom, the estimate, also the electrical generator was one of that, dewatering, electrical generator, outline required, then we talked about that some construction, how they go for it down, old electric, just down some of their subcontractors, and get into those costs. So, difference, from the $350,000 estimate that I put together in 2019, and all we watched, East All Lakeville, there's the way under that. The dewatering was maybe under the controls and the electrical generator is quite an increase. And also just logistics of the location were the three reasons, main reasons that I checked with the three little bidders that they came in with. Like I say, the alternate surprisingly actually came in underneath the, pretty really under the engineer's estimate. So that's the one that there was more concern with the first time we did it in March. It's interesting how bidders will look
Well, that's kind of why I asked about next year, because people do look at things differently based on how busy they are, how busy the market is. If they know if they're busy and all their competition is super busy, all that impacts how things get done, you know? So I'm just looking to ask the questions and make sure we're making a good decision.
One thing I would add is, of all the times with Grandview, that area being busy, this fall might be one of its slowest times ever because of things related to the disease. We may never see a better window to build a lift station regardless of cost.
Sure.
There.
It's the great unknown. If you wait,
Well, and the bids
maybe it's
for this-
better, but maybe it's 25% higher too. You never know.
Well, the second set of bids for this that we got came in from this all the way up to 1 million. I mean, it was just an astronomical spread.
Right.
It's crazy.
Which tells me there's something funny going on in the market, because otherwise things are generally fairly tight. And when there's a lot of variance and things come in higher, that means there's something happening in the market that's not normal. And
Yeah.
you never know.
And I could be way off on this. It's just my personal opinion. So much of the equipment that we've been looking at, unrelated to these two projects, hard to get right now. Things aren't being built. If a contractor's got to meet a deadline and he's not sure if he can get the stuff, he
yeah.
has to probably get something at a higher cost. So,
And that's where next year make a difference. But it is unknown. So, council, what do you want to do?
I'll make a motion that we move forward with the revised Lift Station 3 construction bid recommended by Public Works. As Tom laid out, with the eliminating the need for some of the items that he had stated in his letter. So the total cost would be Aspen, correct?
yes.
$549,603, and it hurts me to have to say that. Or no,
Well, yeah, it's 519,603. It's the base bid plus the alternate one. And then probably separately do the
manhole,
manholes.
right? Okay, thank you.
It's a little bit different from here.
Is that a
So five-
set, and then do the manhole separately?
Yes.
Can they last a year?
Well, they would have to,
Yeah.
but I don't know, Mike has told me many times that they're the concrete's crumbling is what's happening, so. The other issue is regarding to this, and this may be a point I should have made. We're considering a road resurfacing project down there soon. And so it would be important to do whatever we're going to do with these manholes prior to that. So we're trying to get ahead of that with this too.
Sure.
And I would add to my motion, including the DeChantel, right? That's all part of it. Yeah, okay.
519,603 is the number plus the manhole.
Mine says 550. I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Hoff. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Tom. Item E4, resolution regarding state transportation bridge bond funds. for
Mr.
the
Mayor,
Hazelwood
I'd
Drive.
move the resolution as presented.
Second?
Second by Johnson. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E5, golf cart ordinance and trail use policy drafts. I would almost like to have a workshop on that. That's my take. I think you're just looking, give us information. There's a
Yep.
lot of different things happening there with motorized vehicles on our streets. Some streets are more user-friendly towards that sort of thing. Other streets are a little higher speed. Do we allow motorized things on the trail? And if we do, is the trail wide enough to meet the needs? To be honest, there's a lot there. And, so I just, that's my take. But I want to hear what the council's thinking and what they're, what they see in the ordinance that they like, don't like, and then what input they have. So I'm going to maybe start with John.
I
Start on the left side.
reading into, there's stuff I like, there's stuff I want more clarification on, and there's, I got the, I don't know if everybody got the message, you sent it out to everybody, I think, right? We all got copied on that, what East Skull Lakes, their experience and stuff. I just, I think it's a good, it covers a lot. So, yeah, it's not something to rush into, but I would like to take a look at it in more depth and, in some places it might be wide enough, in other places it might not be. And, maybe some of those places that are dangerous, like Grandview area, they could do something to widen it for us. And then that would help keep, there's a lot to look at. So.
One thing, well, oh, no, go ahead. I had something I was going to say, but Mike, you have anything much?
Nope.
Okay, Gary, what about you?
No, nothing really to add. I agree. It's a lot. Yeah. With streets, various trails we have, is this just Gull Lake Trail? Is this Paul Bunyan Trail? Is it trying to encompass all? So yeah, it's a lot. I probably need some more information.
Don, how about you?
Planning Commission's looked at it twice and made comments, and we've had discussions. I suppose if you want to look at it again, it's okay. I looked it over. I saw a few things, but nothing that jumped out and hit me over the head. If you want to do a workshop, I guess that's fine. I don't know if there's any reason to send it back to Planning Commission at this point. They had two shots at it, so.
I'd like to see Public Works. We haven't looked at it yet that I'm aware of, have we? I don't recall seeing it. Okay. Okay. I'd just like to get some more update from Bill and especially.
Yeah. We have, there's so many things that come to mind about it. First of all, in general, I'm in favor of it. I don't want to make it sound like I'm not in favor of it.
Right.
But when you start turning vehicles loose on streets and so on, I can share with you right now, I'm in and around the Grandview area year round on a regular basis. And I can tell you, it is flipping chaos in there. I mean, between the people, it's a separate thing, but between the people walking on the street, the golf carts on the street, Grandview's not complaining, but Grandview's staff on the street, some with lights, some with no lights, some are 10-year-old kids driving them. I mean, it's a neat idea, but we need to make sure we do it right. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. Breezy Point allows it. If you look at their scenario, when they're by a busy street or the county road, they're in the ditch. They're not, well, I shouldn't say that. This year, there's more of them on the road now than there has been. It's getting to be more on the road. But a lot there's just a dirt trail in the ditch that they use also. Some of their streets are just very low traffic streets, and it really doesn't, just really doesn't matter. You could probably play soccer on those streets and just move out of the way occasionally for a vehicle. But then you have, we have streets of a lot of different traffic capacities. And I just think we need to make sure that we have it figured out,
Well, and with more and more of the side-by-sides too,
Yeah.
running around on those.
And, you know, and some of those are kind of noisy. They'll buzz. I mean, there's one family in particular that has one and is buzzed up and down my street at 2:30 in the morning. And some of those side by sides are not that quiet, you know, I mean, so, you know, there's just a lot to cover. And so my feeling is just we need to take our time and you know, Public Works, if there's, John, if you think that Public Works would like to look at it again, I think that would be great. I think probably schedule a workshop and I think it'd be important to invite some people who know something about what state guidelines are. You know, I mean, I know Mr. Fear in the audience here tonight, he's emailed numerous things. I presume you guys are getting most of that. There's a lot of guidance, you know, from the state and other communities that, you know, because I do think it's a neat idea, you know, but we just want to do it right. And so this is just information tonight, so we're not being asked to do anything. Maybe is that the?
That's correct. Certainly any feedback you had, specific or general, such as let's schedule a workshop, we can do that. That's great. I appreciate the feedback I've received from our commissions and committees because I have sent this to them a couple times. So just wanted to extend my thanks to them for reading it over. But yes, it's a complicated issue and should be thought out very well. So hopefully
You know,
it's a good
another
place to
thing.
start.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Judy. Another thing that we should, that I would like to see some input from is the police department and how they would, I mean, what would their, I mean, if the police chief came and made a presentation to us, how would he look to say that the police department would be dealing with it? I mean, would they be regularly patrolling? Would they just say, gosh, I think we're just gonna throw our hands up in the air and just, you know, I mean, you know, how are we gonna, you know, how's the police department feel about it? And what are their, I mean, I can about picture their concerns, but how would they look to deal with, you know, with having those vehicles on the streets, monitoring ages, you know, and things like that? I think that would be a huge piece to this as well. I'd love to hear what.
Ticketing, what's that look
Yeah,
like?
ticketing, yeah, exactly.
Well, according to the way this ordinance is written, unless there's something in the ordinance book somewhere, the enforcement mechanism isn't actually in it other than the permit being revoked. You know, is it a misdemeanor? Is it you know, do you write it under state statute? Do you know, careless, reckless, whatever, so.
Okay, there's kids going up down the street in go-karts sometimes.
Yeah, that's one of those things just making my notes.
Mr. Mayor, did you want a motion to table?
I don't think,
No,
it's
I don't
just,
know that-
it's just information.
Yeah,
Just information? Okay.
But I will work to schedule a workshop
yeah, yes,
if
please
that's,
do,
okay, can do that.
please do.
Hey, Bob, that's-
Bob, come up to the podium and please.
I'm not sure I'm gonna do these, so I'll make it real brief. Kind of involved in trails and ways from a bicycle aspect, but I also end up, those of you who know, I sell those things. You can be about cars and things, so I've seen both sides of it. Did everybody get a copy of the 2.5-page thing I wrote?
I did.
Great. That kind of covers it all. It's, just speaking for bikes, and that's not the only thing with the trail. There are state laws that clearly define what happens when motorized vehicles and pedestrians meet on a trail. Very clear. And I cited one there. You know, I agree with courtesy. I agree when you're on the trail, you come up with somebody 80 years old on a walker, you should move over and get off the trail because of room. But beyond common courtesy, when a motorized vehicle and a pedestrian or a bicycle meet on the trail, there is no legal obligation for the cyclist or somebody to move off trail to let that vehicle pass. It's very clearly called out. Second point is if you accept legacy money to build a trail, in the legacy rules and guidelines, it says you must abide with the 2020 think it's got the old date, 2007, we must abide by the 2020 DOT trail design and maintenance guideline, which definitely covers motorized vehicles and trails. And the last thing, I guess, like too short was the last thing is there's a difference between a private trail, like someone south end of the lake, that where the owner allows the public to use, and a public trail, a legal standpoint. And I've got one person guys going last time, way out to live here. And the last thing is there's some people in Budweiser, Minnesota, Department of Transportation, and another agency that would love to review your guideline for free, or consult places over the phone. That wouldn't be a contract with you for free. And I can run that for you.
Neat idea.
Because I agree with the mayor's comment. I think we should nail it right. Begin with and be very careful. That's about all I have to say on the trails. As far as the golf cart things or whatever on the roads, yeah, mechanical engineer, they weren't designed for federal DOT standards as far as collision and noise and all that other stuff. But yet Colorado, strong states where my business is, a lot of the counties, the sheriffs have allowed them to come into towns of certain size. And, it can be done. But don't mistake a UTV or a golf cart for the safety of the car. There's a world of difference as far as impact and rollover and all this other stuff. So anyways, that's my 10 cents. If you want to dive in your committee, it would be great, but that's your call. Workshops, you know.
Okay.
Any
Great.
questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. There's something else that comes to mind is, and to be honest, I haven't memorized all that policy draft. So, but I think about, you have, as different vehicles, you have golf carts, and then you have modified golf carts. I know people who modify their golf carts, and there's a lot of accessory companies out there. Those things can go 45, 50 miles an hour if you want them to. How do we, and do we allow those on trails, or do we, it's like, how do you, so you have golf carts and various levels of golf carts, and then you have four-wheelers and whatever, UTVs and ATVs, and all different things, and, exactly what's allowed where and when, I think is, I certainly don't have a grasp on it right now. I just know that there's a lot there, so let's set up a workshop and start, and I think it would be important, probably at the first workshop or whatever, I suspect maybe there might be more than one, depending on how it goes, but to have some sort of professionals that can really give us some sound input, rather than just local peoples, nothing against that, but, who don't really know what all the guidelines are and regulations and how it applies to legacy funds and whatever it is, and how to be safe about it. How do we do that? And, Jenny, if you have some other, if you have some thoughts about it, share them now or get a hold of us and talk with us about it. Again, like I said, fun idea. Just figuring it out, that's the key. Okay? Anything else before we move on? Okay. Next on the item, or the next item on the agenda, item E6, personnel updates.
We have, there's an amended version of our personnel updates tonight. I'd just like to quickly speak to two items. Bill Schultz, one of our maintenance techs in the Public Works Department, has submitted his resignation. He's going to work for the city of Breezy Point. Did you have a question?
I just wanted to back up for a second,
Yeah.
and I apologize, but it just popped into my head when I saw the bridge thing again. How does that new bike bridge, I'm not asking you to answer it, but we need to make sure we know how to properly use that new bridge to pedestrians, bicycles, and if anything else, whatever. It's another thing that needs to probably get covered there.
The design is incorporating a pathway for that. so.
Sure. So I'm
It's already built into the bridge. It's gonna go in.
very good.
So for our personnel updates, Bill Schultz, our maintenance tech, submitted his resignation. He's going to work for the city of Breezy Point. So we will, we wish him well. We will miss him here. He did a great job working for our city. And Matthew Hill, our Parks and Rec Director, has accepted a position as the City of Crosby City Administrator.
Yeah, how
So we
cool
are
is
thrilled
that?
for him
It's
and
a
sad
loss
to
for
see
us,
him
but how
go.
cool is that for him?
Absolutely. So I
Kind
just
of
want
back
to,
in his old neighborhood. It's not like
Yeah.
he's going somewhere
yes,
he
familiar.
doesn't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going someplace he's familiar, knows people.
Yeah, so I just want to thank both of them for their contribution to our city. They both did a fantastic job. We will miss them, but they will be in the area, so we can certainly bug them when the opportunity presents itself.
I'll make a motion, we accept the personnel updates as amended in our packet.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda, item E7, recommendation to advertise and hire position for maintenance technician. 7A is recommendation to advise and hire. We want to do them like one at a time like that? We're going to have personnel.
That's fine. I mean, just depends on the council's preference. I have recommendations to hire for both those positions and then updating job descriptions. So
Okay.
however the council would like to do that.
We'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
So 7A is recommendation to advertise and hire for the position of Park and Rec Director.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move
Second.
Okay. Second by
For-
Rob.
one.
Park,
Park or maintenance? Maintenance one is,
Park.
7A,
Park and Recreation.
Okay.
yeah, Park and Rec.
that was Don and Mike?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
I didn't get my eye in there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's fine. I have a question, but I'll ask you later.
Okay.
It's fine.
Gotta,
Yeah, I know.
if I'm looking the other way, Jenny just makes some noise or something. Okay, 7B, approve updated job descriptions. No, we have one more person to do.
Yes, maintenance
Yes.
technician,
Okay.
please.
Is there a motion for maintenance technician?
I'd move for maintenance technician to advertise to hire for the position.
Second.
Don and John?
So I'll ask my question for both of these. This will just be a general posting. Do we use any services or anything on this type of thing?
Thank you for the questions. So for both of them, no, my plan is not to use a consultant or anything
Okay.
for that. I have not really got into the details yet for the park director position as far as what that's going to look like. But yes, it would be general posting on the city website, the league's website.
Right.
More just the normal stuff is kind of my plan at this point. So I'll keep the council in the loop as I go through that. But yes.
Thank you.
I believe we have a motion in a second, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda, item 7B, approve updated job descriptions for the positions of Park and Rec Director and Maintenance Technician.
The updates have just minor changes, nothing significant to the positions themselves, trying to clean them up a little bit and just clarify a few pieces of it, but no significant changes.
I'll move to accept the updated job descriptions for the positions stated. Second.
Okay. Questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E8, resolution to amend Teamsters General Local Union Number 346 contract RE Sergeant position.
For this item tonight, so currently the structure for the city staff with regards to our law enforcement personnel is we have our police chief is covered under a bargaining unit contract. Our officers are covered under a contract, but our sergeant has historically just kind of been under the general staff umbrella and not represented. And it has been a little bit of an awkward setup. We've made it work over the years. With the promotion of Todd Szymanski to sergeant, he has requested that consideration be given to include his position in with the Teamsters, which is our officers' contract. So we go through a process to determine if the position is considered supervisory according to statute. And we've determined that it's not based on 10 criteria. There were really only, I think, 2 or 3 that could potentially come into play. And so with that, we feel that that would be, that is a reasonable request to include that. And then they'd all be represented a little cleaner as far as just structure wise. But it does have to go through the BMS, the Bureau of Mediation Services. They have to sign off on it. They may have questions or things, but this is at least showing the support from both Teamsters and the city that we don't have any objection to this request.
So basically, this is just semantics.
Correct.
There's no monetary or anything, right?
Nope. And timing is good because upcoming contract negotiations, then we can work through those details, but none of that changes now.
Mhm.
It is what it is, the same pay grade and everything stays the same. It will get rolled into the contract,
It just puts the position
into the contract.
into the contract, which we haven't had before.
Correct.
And it would be the officers union?
Yes.
346.
Yes.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay. Jacobson and Mr. Ryan. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item E9, council meeting rules of order policy draft.
So this, following the June 25th special council meeting a few weeks ago, the council requested that I draft a couple different policies. And one of them was regarding council meeting, kind of rules of procedure. And so I wanted to present something to you. This is meant to be kind of a trifold brochure that the public can utilize. Just a quick kind of handy piece of material. Both of the next 2 items, certainly looking for your feedback, edits. We can table it. We can, do whatever the council would like. But you asked me for some drafts to review, so here's the first one.
Kind of looked through it. I thought it looked pretty good.
Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
the only substantive comment that I had was, I thought we should do an ad there, someplace to say that the city operates in Robert's Rules of Order, which is more of a legal thing.
And that's a good thought. And I like the idea, but it would actually make a pretty big change in the way we operate.
I think we operate under them already, don't we?
Well, theoretically we do, but we don't follow them to the letter by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not saying I'm opposed or for it. I'm just saying that if we do that and want to do that, we would need to modify, because Robert Rules of Order, I believe, say if you want to speak, you must get permission from the mayor.
Right. I think most cities use Roberts.
So
Am I right or wrong, Mr. Lawyer?
we've been a little bit more of a free-flowing system.
Yes, when it gets to sticky stuff especially, there's usually a reference to those rules, but they're difficult to digest and interpret, and everything. Basically, for most of the things that this council would do, it's really kind of on the edge of how deep those things are. So probably doesn't hurt anything to say we subscribe to that, but there's a lot of nuance to those rules.
So I mean, there's a part of it that I think's really appropriate. I think, so, but what does the other council members think? Or do we need to get a printout of the Robert's Rules of Order and then,
I think.
yeah, and decide what we want to do or not want to do, or if we want to adopt the whole thing or none of it? What's council
Well-
think?
I understand where Don's going, but I agree with Tom. It can, you know, I'll go down the road Tom said it.
I've been outvoted before.
Huh?
I've been outvoted before.
Okay. Every meeting.
I don't think, I don't think anybody's necessarily opposed to it. It's just a matter of to what level of depth would we want to?
Well,
Do
as I'm not against okaying this. All I'm saying is that if you look at it, it's generally how we operate, and we do it this way because we've always done it this way. And the Robert's Rules of Orders puts a little more legalese, a little more teeth into it, where you can point to something and say, we did this because the rules say this. That's all I'm saying. But I've been wrong before.
We all have. So, if it isn't that big of a deal, maybe, because I would like to at least have us take a peek at the Robert's Rules, at least some of it. I'd be open to tabling it and explore that. Tom?
Doesn't our ordinance say somewhere that we subscribe to Robert's Rules of Order?
I think.
I can certainly check. It'll take me a second here. So and yes,
It
there's
does
no,
sound-
And if it does, then that covers that, what this would become as well.
Yes.
But I know we operate pretty loosely from what that states. And I think other communities do to different levels.
Well, you try to use some parliamentary procedure, right? But if you get to some, let's say, some sticky discussions on a board, then there's lots of maneuvers that are within the confines
Okay, yeah.
that can be used.
That's true.
Read it and understand it.
well, the planning commission is, at least it states, follows Robert's rules, but does not speak to the city council. So there you go.
Because Don's on that committee.
Coincidence?
I didn't hear that, and I don't think I was supposed to.
Just the right time.
How's the council feel
Recodification.
about it?
I'm good with how it is. but
Yeah, I am
Do we want to,
I'm fine
Okay.
with it as is.
Okay, very good. So do we want to,
I'll make a motion that we accept the, if that what we're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Make a motion that we accept the council meeting rules and order policy draft as presented.
I'll second.
second by Johnson, any questions on that motion or clarifications?
Robert's Rules on section 3.4 says, okay,
You know he's going to be bringing that up now
Oh.
yeah.
And we'll enjoy every time you do.
I know.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Next on the agenda, item E10, City Council Code of Conduct Policy Draft. So is this survey part of this, or what is the survey that you have?
That's for the meeting,
That's for the next item for old business.
Okay,
meeting schedule.
okay.
So this policy is, again, is requested to look at something, review it. It is a few pages. Some of the information I thought might be helpful for the future for new council members, coming in, and maybe, information that they're going to learn or don't know as readily available as council, with more experience. But certainly there's a lot of information here. Looking for your feedback or want to review it some more and follow up with me. I did receive comments from Councilmember Jacobson, so thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, I did come in on Monday and talked with Jenny, gave her my markup. I had a number of markup changes in there that I disagreed with. But in general, I think we were being painted with a broad brush that we shouldn't be painted into. Signing this thing basically says, I agree that I'm not going to rob, cheat, or steal any money or anything, and I'm not going to do anything illegal that I'm not allowed to do under law. It went on for 4 pages like that, and there's a space for you to sign to say that you agree with everything in there. I don't agree with everything in there, and I think it's almost a slap in the face to ask a city council person to sign a document like that. If city council person is doing something wrong, it should be brought out in the open, in the public. And then you don't have to rely on a document like this, 4 pages long, to say that you shouldn't be doing it. You should follow state law. And I, for one, how can I say this nicely? You could vote on it tonight, but I'm going to vote no, and I'm not going to sign it even if you do pass it, because I just don't think it's right and proper the way it's laid out, to ask us to sign a document like that. That's my personal opinion. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Don. Well, you know, I think maybe once upon a time back, gosh, I don't know, it might have been a year ago or so, I think Jenny and I had conversation about when new people come onto a committee or the council, what do they need to know? You know, what do they need to know that they probably don't know as an ordinary citizen who was just elected or appointed to this group? And I do, as I look at this, I see some things in here that are helpful there. I also, you know, think it goes in a little bit in other directions. I share some similar thoughts that you have, but so I guess because I wasn't here, I would just look to help me understand, is this what the majority of the council was looking for as a draft, or is it more or less, or maybe a little one, you know, one way or off the path of what you were thinking a little bit, or just to get some input, and I think that would help all of us and help Jenny as well.
I think due to or what came out of the last meeting was some sort of guideline for staff, city staff, employees, and council to have some sort of document to follow as far as their actions and everything like that. And so and this is what it tasked Jenny or Jonathan to do, and this is something that they came up with.
Was this language, was a lot of this from the league, or where did you kind of pull things from?
I searched other Minnesota cities versions of this, and I took the template that I thought just was most clear as far as flow and everything, and then I really tried to word things that might be applicable more to Nisswa than to like a bigger city, because some of the larger cities have documents that are even twice this or longer because of the nature of the size of the organization. But I took, mostly the league had references to other city policies. They didn't have something of theirs, so they just, here are some examples you can start with and use as a guideline. So that's what I did. I took a handful, half a dozen other city samples and put this together.
I should know this. I don't remember. Do we have something now that we present to?
No.
We don't.
Okay.
So, as I look at it, maybe I'll ask our city attorney this first. you know, probably the piece that I questioned the most, because without it, it's a lot of kind of good information. There's a lot of good information in here. But the sanctions part, you know, I mean, you got somebody on planning, zoning, public works, city council. I mean, you know, I don't know, I guess, I mean, to some extent, I guess I don't disagree with it. It seems a little hold you to accountability, but it, you know, but I think that's part of what you know, we expect from each other is that we do follow. You know, I mean, a lot of this is good, you know, compliance and enforcement and sanctions, that's, I mean, there's maybe some discussion about that and what that is and what it looks like. And, you know, I mean, do you got to get, you know, like say with the union, you have to get 3 warnings and, you know, then do Hail Marys and then, you know, then you're okay, or before you're out, or, I mean, what exactly would that look like? You know, I mean, you know, I think, so that piece, I think needs more discussion, but some of the really just general information here, I think can be really helpful, you know, like, you know, your little, and I don't know, it almost seemed like we maybe had some conversation about it, but that little triangle about how things work and how it flows, you know, I think that's good, you know. So.
I'm not saying there isn't some good stuff in there.
Right.
I'm just saying that for a 4-page document, it says, here's what you can and can't do. It's state law. And ask me to sign it. It's like people are saying, well, you're a cheat and you're a liar. And this proves it because you're signing on the dotted line. I rebelled at that.
I think
I like it that you rebelled with something.
I do every once in a while.
I think there's 2 things this is doing. One is putting together information for new people and for even people that are currently serving, all of us, you know, a reference item, how something works or it doesn't work. It does that. And then it also is I think you could actually divide this out into 2, you know, one is more of you're new on the council, you're new to this. Okay. Here's a guide for you to look at. This just kind of runs down how we do things, etc. There's your use, you know, this is how we do it, guidelines. And then there's how we expect everyone to conduct themselves. If you're going to be a part of an elected body, what we have to be, you know, how would we expect to be conducted? How do the people, the community expect us to conduct ourselves? And then what do we have to be careful of now is what I was thinking of back at the meeting when we were talking about, you know, because I'll make a prime example. One of the first emails that I got, I hit reply all and I sent an answer back. And like, I think Lori might have even still been here and she said, you can't do that. I go, do what? Because you hit reply all. I mean, it's just how you answer emails. And oh, damn, open. Okay. Thankfully, it wasn't anything important. But so there's those little things you got to know about that you may not know about. And then, you know, from our own personal habits, they're fine. But now that you're on an elected board, you know, be mindful of that. So that's where the policy or the conduct part of it comes in. So I think this is actually 2 things. Could very easily be 2 things. And I don't know that it honestly needs to be signed. Either one of them need to be signed at all because you signed on the dotted line when you said you were going to run for office. And so, you know, you got to, those are the rules. So I think we can break it in 2, but there's a lot of good info in here.
You know, something that.
So I agree with you, Don, on part of it there. I will.
You know, and I know I brought this up to Jenny as well a long time back, and that is when you become appointed or elected, you know, many don't have any experience. None. You know, you wanted to be on a board, or you wanted to, or committee, or you wanted to be on the council because you wanted to be involved in your community or whatever. There's a part of me that says, you know, the League of Minnesota Cities has some good classes
That's right.
that we should almost be mandated. It's like, okay, now you're on this board, now you should take intro to being on this committee, you know, or intro to city council or whatever. Because, you know, had we had that place, you know, I can think of a time or two where it might have paid off, or people wouldn't have been quite so personally speaking what they felt personally instead of what the rules of that department are, you know, the regulations of that department and what, you know, what that group can do and can't do, you know.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mayor, you're right, and I think it'd be a much better way for us to just say when you're elected or a council or a commission, whatever, that the requirement is that you do go to a league meeting for new people where they explain this stuff. And I think that's a better way to handle it other than going through 4 pages and signing and what we have in front of us by far.
But then what, I mean, this does define a little bit from a disciplinary perspective, what can be done. If we don't have that, what do we do?
You know, state law.
Well, you know, I think there's two separations there. One is the elected official is up for election every 4 years, every 2 years, you know, and I don't know how many people know that, you know, when you run for council, it's 4 years because you're not leading the group, so to speak. Mayor's every 2 years. Statutory city, you can't be removed as mayor, but elections every 2 years. And that's the legal piece for that is, you know, you're stuck with the person for 4 years or 2 years and you know, that's the way it's set up. So, you know, that gives the citizens a choice. That's the voting. Now, you go to committees, that's different. They're not voted in. So, you know, and I'm not saying we couldn't or shouldn't have something for elected officials, but that's kind of what the election process generally is about. And then, you know, committees, you know, there's really, I don't think we have any method or mechanism to remove anybody from a committee. But I'm aware.
Yeah, by vote of the council, you can by 4/5 vote,
Okay.
according to Robert's rules.
What page and what?
I think
We love and respect it. Don. We just like to have a little fun, that's all.
I don't.
I'm thinking if we tabled this aspect of it, but I really do think that we need to have a policy, a conduct policy, just something that everyone can look at when they first get here and say, okay, this is how we're expected to be. This is how we're expected to carry ourselves. I think that was clear at the last meeting that was kind of missing, a component of our personnel policy and stuff that was missing. And, or at least if it's in there, it's very ambiguous and it's really not easy to see. But then you don't have to sign it, but it's there. So you know that it's there. And then putting something together. I mean, I've been to the League of Minnesota training for new council members, and I've been to a couple other league trainings, and they're great. And it's, you know, it's free. So, you know, and it is good. So I think that it's something that, you know, that would be a policy thing that we would say that you will attend that, you know, if you're new to the, you know, and honestly, it wouldn't even hurt, you know, sometimes even if you've been on a committee or something for a council for a while to go and you realize, oh, that's like using a computer, Don. Oh, that's why you do that, push that button.
Yeah.
So, but I think we, you know, if we tabled this for today and then divided those two things out. So we have a code of conduct, but then this is that informational packet for that new council member or that new committee member or whatever it might be. So I'll make
Okay
that
with that.
motion.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's good.
Yeah, make a motion to table it.
Table.
Second.
Table.
Can I request any specific sections you like or don't like from the rest? If you could let me know. I mean, I can certainly do some, modifications on it as well, but would just appreciate the feedback. So-
Overall, in general,
I will give you
I'm
mine.
pretty satisfied with it,
Okay.
Kind of took kind of a medium distance view. I mean, I tried not to get in
Every little word, but
every little word.
generally.
and
Mhm.
So
Mr. Mayor,
I'll look at it again.
if you want, I can sit down with Jenny and go over and provide my expertise too.
I would encourage you to do that.
I can do that.
I'm going to St. Cloud tomorrow. I'll be picking up a copy of Robert's Rules.
A copy, thank you.
Don's gonna sit down with you.
Okay, very good. So we are tabling that. And we will continue to move it forward next month. Last item, no, that was the last item. Check that baby off. So we're moving on to old business, community survey, RE council meeting schedule. I just have to, and we did kind of talk about this, like how do you get the word out to people? How do you get, I saw
Yep.
some, in general, is there like 9 people that responded? Somewhere around there?
As of the printing of this, yes, I have
Okay.
received a handful more. And so I wanted to provide what I have so far as information. I know Mr. Jenkins is here to speak to that, certainly. And I don't know if you received it, I did send you a letter with the link to the survey, so you'd be able to distribute that as well. So that's,
Sure.
Alan Jenkins, live on Smiley Road. I have before me tonight a number of signatures. Not a single one from the west side of the street. I did not get over there. I spent about an hour and a half on the east side of the street the other day when I had time. I know there's some people over there, and there was a number of people that the manager said the owner was not in. They would be in on Tuesday or Wednesday of that week. So again, I only had one rejection, and that was from a lady that very blatantly said, I don't go to church. It concern me. That was the only one. Other than that, everyone that I went to signed this. So I do have some here. And I have not gotten in touch with the Catholic Church, nor the Timberwood, or the what used to be Nisswa Community Church. So Dwayne Blank, I think, had talked with a few people and asked them to get in on the survey. So, but I do have a number of names and I will be getting some more. Thank you.
is that for us to have, or do you want to
I'll-
drop it
I'll
off?
hang on to these till I get some more, because
Okay.
when were you going to make a decision on this?
That's up to the council. If there's a
Is the
time
survey
frame.
Still up?
It is. I was going to have it up through July. I can leave it up longer. I can do whatever would make the most sense.
Yeah, leave it up to August.
Up through the August meeting.
Pardon?
Would that work?
Mhm.
Yeah.
For another month?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and leave it
Okay.
up, leave it up for the next. So do we want to put it, have it on the agenda for action next meeting?
Well, just before you get into that, when you're asking people, are you signatures, are you coming to a consensus time on when it would work for everybody?
No, I'm leaving that up to you. You can look at what Baxter does, Brainerd does. This is just that people would like to see it any other night than Wednesday night. They would like to have that opportunity to be able to go to their house of worship if they so desire.
Gotcha.
Do you know, are these people aware of this survey we have available? Did any of them already respond? Do you know?
At the time that I talked to all of these people, none of them were aware of the survey.
Okay.
Because I specifically asked them, have you seen a survey that's out there? No, I haven't seen anything.
What was the question that you asked these people to respond to? What was the question?
Pardon?
What was the question that you asked these people to respond to when you knocked on their door?
I asked them if they would agree that our city council would meet on any other night than Wednesday night. So if they were going to be going to church, they wouldn't have to make a choice of going to church or coming to a council meeting.
Okay.
Can we ask Nancy to put it in the paper again, maybe? That we have the survey online? Please go to our website and look at it.
Sure.
Nancy?
I'll work with Nancy.
Okay.
How's that?
Also, if I may, while I'm up here, we're in $1 million building, but we've got a $75 system per here. This stinks. Dwayne Blank commented after we walked out a month ago. He said, I couldn't hear a word that was being said. Can we do something about this, or can you get up about this far away? They're directional mics. I believe everybody can hear me speaking right now. Is that correct? I hear a thumbs up over there. Could you hear everybody up there speaking before? I see a lot of heads shaking no. Speak into the mics, close. Thank you. Otherwise, I'm going to come up here every time I can't hear it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Should we put this on the agenda for next month to make a decision, August?
Yep.
Yeah. So it will be on for a decision. So do we want to discuss, at that time, do we want to discuss night of the week, or what do we want to have when next month comes around?
If we're going to take action on it, I guess we would probably want to, if we are in fact going to move it, we probably would want to know to where and when.
I think we also,
You're asking, do we want to do that now or then? Or just think
Yeah,
about it?
now then, or how do we want to go about doing that? Do we want to just do it, do we want to do it somewhat now? Which maybe would help people doing the survey if maybe not. I mean, would Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, the third Tuesday?
Well, I think you really only have one real clear option is Tuesday. Thursdays run into early weekends for certain holidays. Monday it's Monday.
Oh, well, that's a holiday sometimes too.
Yeah, so you've got, so Tuesday would be to me anyway, that's the obvious choice.
Mhm.
But I'm in a position where it doesn't matter what day it is, I can make it work.
Yeah, doesn't matter to me either.
Okay.
I think potentially it's the week of the month, and then also working with Mr. Pearson, Mr. Hallen, their schedules, what that looks like and yours. So maybe if I can get what doesn't work, does or doesn't from the council, I could compile
How
that.
about if we just say, let's see if the third Tuesday of the month works?
And then you can check with those guys.
I can do that. Okay.
Well, and pending some further survey results too. I would like to see.
just my thoughts, Tuesday are not great for me, but that's fine. We're never going to find one that'll work for everybody.
No.
Okay. Very good. Next on the agenda, old business, F2, American Tower, First Amendment to site lease agreement. So is this the tower that's out at the Public Works area?
Yes.
Okay.
And if it's okay with Tom, can I have you give a quick rundown on your memo and? Yes, yes.
Yeah, and Kenny, when I'm done, maybe you could speak to what's driving time on this if there is, but.
Yep.
We've been kind of kicking around on this for some months. So my red line kind of speaks for itself. The amendment itself is not significant. The lease itself is significant. We really have 3 or 4 big things to consider in this, and one of them would be the term. One of them would be the price. One of them would be whether or not we want to sell a right of first refusal out there, and if we do, if that's rolled into the lease price, or whether there's some separate upfront price for that. And then, probably the biggest thing in this is Tom's need to have that access changed because of the problems that access is causing now. He probably can speak to, but he's running into lots of problems that everyone probably knows about with the installation of more infrastructure out there by these sublessees, causing problems for his facility. So, and they have offered for this to change. So the time is right for that. My concern in reading the amendment and the lease is that unless there's stuff in our files, and I haven't asked Jenny this, unless there's stuff in our files, there's sublessees out there, I think, that are operating that we don't know about. And they're just out there tearing stuff up when they need to. And we don't know what they're paying. We don't have copies of their lease. We don't know what we might be entitled to as far as our take on that. So there's some things that need to be cleaned up here on this. So those are kind of the greatest hits besides the red lines themselves.
So how do we move it forward in an efficient manner?
Well, having just gotten this last week, and there's a lot to digest here and a lot to talk about, think about, it's something that needs to be considered more by the council until we get to another council meeting, which is why I asked about the time driver, Jenny. What's our timing look like? What do you know?
What I know is that American Tower is very interested in renewing the lease for their purposes as far as then extending subleases. They are very amenable to having the discussion about installing a new road to give them separate access that would then allow us to have more security at the sewer plant. So I don't want to lose that opportunity for them, as they've basically stated. I think they will take care of the cost of that as long as we can move this forward. And so I think ideally, if, in the next few months, we can start to work with them on some of the details, I think they would like to see some progress. I don't think it's tomorrow, but certainly want to take advantage of that. And
What's tomorrow?
I'm saying they don't need an answer tomorrow, but they do want to know, because I have said this has been under review and we've been working through some of the details internally, but that the council would be looking at this soon. And potentially they want to have that road project going for them soon, which is an advantage for the city as well.
It's our biggest,
Yeah.
question that, and Jenny, you and I haven't talked about this, but I don't have any sense of what a lease rate should be.
Okay.
And there's got to be some intel we can gather on that to find out whether we're in the ballpark here, whether we should be talking about something more.
Okay.
And again, we have no idea who they're subleasing to, and under the current terms of the lease, what we should be getting. I know you gave me a number for what we're getting each month, but I don't know how that's broken down. So maybe we can get some of that information. Maybe we can get some comparables about what a lease rate would be.
Okay.
In time to consider this at the next meeting.
Okay.
But I'm not the decision maker here, but our biggest get in this is getting Tom squared away out there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
getting that, there's probably some things to give away here if we had to get that done.
Yeah.
From my standpoint.
Right.
Who owns the tower? Does American Tower own the tower?
Yeah, us.
They lease our property.
Correct. Yeah.
So the current lease is not set to expire until 2028.
Yes.
So,
Last extension, yeah.
so what is the urgency at this point? This is coming from them. They've approached us, right?
Yes.
Get the sublessees signed on longer that are expiring or something like that?
I would imagine that they need time to be able to deal with all of those subleases and wanting to just have this
And the more
set.
access stuff they must have to go through, if you have to build a new site and all
Yeah.
the stuff that goes with that.
Yeah.
They showed up on somebody's calendar.
So we have some ability here to negotiate a price, right? So is the 1750 a month, is that what we're getting now? Or that's what they're proposing?
That is what they're proposing. We receive $11.25 a month, $1,125.
Which is some composite of base rent
Yep.
and some sublessee percentage stacking, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you understand that?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
how it's computed, we don't know.
Do we want a little bit more transparency on that as well?
Well, I think that,
Yeah.
the lease, Mike says that they should let us know about subleases and we should give them approval and not withhold it unnecessarily. Well, I don't know that time that process has ever been followed. And in fact, this amendment purports to say that they don't have to give us notice of that, which would fly in the face of how do we account for who's out there and what they're being charged and what our take should be on that. So that's part of what I redlined out of here. But it's a good time to get caught up to that. And yes, it's a good time to negotiate price. And yes, we have some leverage. And yes, there's a get for us in this. It's pretty big.
So how do we find, I mean, oftentimes I know how to find out things. I have no idea how to find out what leasees pay on a tower and what a cut and what a appropriate, what an appropriate percentage paid to the landowner would be.
I can find out on a city basis what the smaller units around the city pay out, but there are very few of these very big towers like we have them out there now. Most of this stuff is done differently now. It used to be that way, but not now. There's one other thing that's not listed here. There's an out in here for the American Tower, but there's no out for the city. And I wonder if we should look at that too.
I would think a good place to start to get the answer to your question, to your insurance company. Because it's on your property, and if something happens to somebody, insurance companies have more data on more stuff than Carter has liver pills. And I just wonder if they might not have, because somebody somewhere in an insurance company is thinking, or no offense, some attorney is going to say, okay, if Joe Schmo is out at a tower on our property, even though it's leased by so-and-so, and they get injured, so yeah, might be a place to start looking for accurate.
There's an office of telecommunications down in the Capitol too that oversees this. They have a lot of data.
FCC might even have some, but we might end up with more information than we want.
So more to come on this, or you need some more direction from us on this?
We're lucky.
Where are we at?
This was mostly at this point, I think, if I can say, Jenny, up for us to get, we gave you this earlier, but without any direction about what we think about it. So this is an attempt to put some red lines into this and identify some major issues that we need to maybe dig deeper into that are the high points of this. So I don't know if there's an action item for the council tonight other than here's the next step in our consideration. We'll come next meeting, hopefully Jenny and I'll get together to see if we can compile some more information and just kind of keep this moving. If that makes sense.
Don, I know you've seemed to have had a lot of interest in the telecommunications tower stuff. You want to be involved in this?
Sure, I can do that. Yeah, I was on the QCTV cable communications. I was the chair for 20 years down the city.
So, Jenny, you want to maybe you and maybe
Whatever.
the two of you get together and talk about it a little bit.
Looped on in and, yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Figure out where we can find some information so we can make good decisions on that. Okay. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Tom. Item F3, City Council Liaison Structure. Number 1, memo from Jenny Max regarding proposed City Council Liaison Structure, draft liaison proposed structure, Commission and Committee Appointments and Procedures Policy Update, Ordinance Amendment Draft for Commissions, Planning and Zoning, and Park and Rec. Just, are you looking for feedback, or are you just saying, here, you guys?
Sorry for all the drafts of things. My attempt here was to line up a proposed policy for our liaison structure, and then what our ordinance says, because that would have to be amended should there be changes made. Back in May, I provided for information just a very high level overview of what suggested changes to our liaison structure would be. The primary one was that we would take Any council member liaison that's actively participating in a commission or committee, and make them more truly a liaison advisory, and have, community members make up those groups as opposed to the council members. And so this was just, at some point, if we continued on and the council liked this direction, these would be the documents would have to be prepared. So I wanted to start to do that and provide it to you for information. Something like this, I would suggest we wouldn't implement, assuming the council likes this direction, until the new year, just to keep it cleaner and not to a mid-year shift with that, but certainly can be information for tonight. I'm just looking for general feedback at some point from the council if you'd like to continue this, to make the change or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Gary?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'm looking on page 2 here, and I just have one major question that I don't understand. Under planning and zoning, it says the liaison will attend meetings and listen to commission discussion. Parks and Rec, attend meetings and listen to discussion. Public Works, attend meetings and listen to discussion. What can you get by attending that you can't get out of reading the minutes or something like that? Why do you just have to go to listen? What's the point? I'm not quite sure on that.
Typically, minutes are very abbreviated versions of what took place in a meeting, and you don't get a lot of the detailed conversation, topics, review of things. So I would certainly think that you're going to get more information than you would simply by reading the minutes, aside from just the actual action items. Now, we are getting up to, recording all of our meetings in video, and you can have that as certainly as well as a way to look at that. But I understand what you're getting at. But certainly minutes don't always reflect the detail that is
It
covered.
just sounds almost like a waste of time to go and just sit there and listen. I suppose you can do that, but
Well, I think maybe where that ties in a little bit is when we get to council reports. I mean, in my vision of council reports is where liaisons, council members give a report on what they see, what they, do they think that something needs to be looked at, changed? Is there some issue that's being discussed that the council should get some heads up on? I mean, that sort of thing. I don't necessarily know that liaisons should be directing, I'm not quite sure even what words to use, but directing the meeting or guiding the meeting or anything like that. I mean, I think that's why we have the group of people. But the liaison is the person who brings what they see at the meetings back to the council for awareness. Is there a problem person in the group, or is there whatever? I mean, that's probably a rare occasion, but
Or to clarify clarify an action item on the.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. Those sorts of things. I don't.
Is it just the word listen that you don't like?
well, I'm just trying
Because
to
they would be non-voting, but
be
you certainly
non-voting.
could participate in discussions.
Well, it doesn't say that. It says
Yeah.
attend meetings and listen to the discussion
Yeah.
in all three. I understand what the words are saying. That's why I'm wondering, why do I just go and sit in the audience and listen? What benefit is there basically to that? Jenny can report on anything major if she wants to, or the staff person can come to the meeting and report like Brittany did today. I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just wondering what where the benefit is, that's all.
I think the benefit of being there, like, for example, is if the committee is discussing it and they're saying, well, what was the council trying to ask? As a question wise, then the council member, instead of saying, well, I don't know, you know what, we'll have to come back to this next month. The council member can clarify, well, this is what the discussion was at the council meeting.
So you're envisioning more interaction than just
Yes.
sitting and listening.
yes, there's going to be some interaction, but you're not going to be a decision maker. You're not going to be a voter.
You're not a voting member.
Right. We get to vote here.
Just in, sorry, but just the kind of where this all came from, I think it was back at the beginning of the year when we started talking about the structures.
Mhm.
Was it, not to be devil's advocate to what you guys are saying, but wasn't it about now that we have department heads that lead these meetings that report to Jenny and then Jenny can report to us, kind of to alleviate our role in being at all those different committee meetings? Am I mistaken on that?
Not at being at them. I think what you said, Mike, there's kind of a good point. And that is, if the department heads take all of their information and go to Jenny with it, and that's supposed to be assimilated and defined, and then it's Jenny's job to get it to the council with everything else she has going on, that's asking a lot.
Right.
Where the liaison can take that information that they see happening and they can bring it to the council. Not to say, well, I think we should do this or that, but to say, that they had a question about this, or you should maybe know about that. And, that's taking what's happening in that committee and anything that's pertinent, bringing that to the council during council reports. To me, that's what the liaison's job is. To say everything has to go through Jenny is like, I mean, you're right, but I don't think you can, keep track of all that, nor should you have to.
Sure.
I think that's the liaison's job, is to bring that around to the council and say, here's a point, there's, this is what I'm seeing, and this is, I think council, you should be aware of this, or.
Well, it's just.
So if it didn't say only listen, you'd be okay with it. You just don't like the just listen.
Well, I didn't see an advantage of just listening.
Yeah.
If there's the opportunity for the interaction, like if you're sitting down in the corner down there and everybody else is talking down here.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I do think it's important that the liaison be able to provide some feedback and
Mhm.
participate in discussions on these committees and in these commissions.
And I think it's explained a little better in the policy as opposed to just the summary. I you know what I mean? So I do agree with that. And liaisons could be non-voting members or something like that, if that's makes a little more sense for that, certainly.
Let me point out one problem with the summary then under the Public Works Committee. It's just 2 members of the council appointed as liaison and pro tem voting members. Am I reading
Is that on the
wrong?
first page?
That's on the current
That's the current structure. I just summarized what currently we have.
proposed
I'm
structure
sorry,
on the second.
I'm sorry, I got the
That's
wrong
okay.
sheet.
No,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
So,
You're right. Robert's rules say that
That would
I'm
never
wrong.
have happened under Robert's rules.
RRO.
So I will-
Rules of Order.
I will make that adjustment or look at that if that's just the general direction, and then
Bring it
Well,
back again.
bring it
And-
back.
I think another piece in that is for a liaison is some oversight, it's
Mhm.
like, if, let's just say planning and zoning, the discussion's going away that in a direction that it really shouldn't, might be the liaisons could say, maybe we're outside of our bounds here,
Mhm.
that sort of thing. But I don't think a liaison should be overly giving input, because
Mhm.
to be there to hear what's going on, know what's going on in a committee, to be able to forward that to the council, and then to help with clarifications and things like that. I think that's, and maybe we need to, over time, we develop that a little bit more or something.
Well, based
Help
upon
define
what
it.
we talked about tonight, I feel a little better about the language.
So if you're worried about that you can't talk, then
Well, I
That's
was wondering.
We're doing everything we can, Don, to keep you from talking.
I'll bring the Robert's Rules book with me.
okay. So we
gotta
will
stop there.
look that over a little bit more, and we will talk about it next month, yes. Council reports, I really don't have anything tonight myself. Council members, Don?
As a liaison for the planning commission, I'd let you know that at the last meeting, we did have an unnamed individual come forward and told us that he was going to be bringing at the next P&Z meeting a plan for a mini golf course in the city of Nisswa, down by the traffic circle. You know, where
The southeast corner of,
No, and run 371 in the roundabout, down in that area. Don't know any more about it other than that. They just alerted us that that was coming.
Could be a neat idea.
yeah.
Mr. Johnson?
The only thing I'd like to, I guess, bring up, and I'm sure everybody will share with this, serving as the liaison to Park and Rec over the last few years. What a pleasure it has been to work with Matthew Hill. Just really happy for him. Well deserved to move on to a city administrator role, but boy, we're going to miss him. A lot of things happened that I'm not sure would have happened without Matthew here. Walk across the street to the new park, the work that's been done on the Gull Lake Trail, just to name a few, the Park and Rec Department, Community Center, it's really been good. Hate to see him go.
Yeah, he's, and with the hockey, even like the hockey rink and the equipment, he rolled up his sleeves and really,
Yep.
got into that, all of those things. So yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. He's good man, a good individual.
Yep. Big shoes to fill.
I'll echo what Gary just said, I guess. I like Matthew. Glad he was able to find something that's going to challenge him a little bit more. Along those notes, they are submitting the grant application for the Gull Lake Trail, the legacy grant, I think, here at the end of the month.
Yep.
And then that brings up a change. There's Gull Lake Trail meetings are suspended until we hear results from that. So
Yes. Good point.
Mr. Ryan?
Ditto with Matthew. In reference to Bill leaving our Public Works Department, all I can say is I'm going to be sad because I finally got my mailbox snowplow proof because Bill plows my route and he always takes it out. I was interested to see how it was going to hold up, but one other thing is it was brought to my attention. I brought it to Tom's attention and we're going to discuss it at the next Public Works meeting. And that's people posting no parking on city roads. Hell, it happened during the 2nd of July out on Lower Roy Lake Road for the fireworks that Grandview did. The police department was asked about posting it for no parking. They didn't have sign. We don't have the signs for that. Technically, if you guys remember, we passed an ordinance that says you cannot park on a city street. That was a couple of years ago, unless it's designated as a parking. And so I'm going to talk to Tom. We're going to bring it up at the Public Works meeting and see, because we run into it with some of the other events too. They, you just can't, you just can't make a decision to go and post something, no parking. You got to kind of run it through certain hoops with the city before you tell people they can't park on a city road. There are reasons why you might not want them to park there and you want to have it posted no parking. But we're going to see what, we'll dig into it and I'll have more info for the council at the next meeting.
So citizen, the property owner posted no parking in front of their property. Is that what you're saying?
Not their property, yeah.
Or somewhere.
And on the roads. We passed an ordinance it was December, it was Ross's last meeting. And it was, there's no parking on city streets unless it's designated as a parking spot. We don't enforce it, which is a problem, but that's another story. But what happened was they decided to put their no parking signs up because they were trying to keep the congestion down where people pull in and out from, where they park all over the place for the fireworks. And then if everyone's parked up and down both sides of Lower Roy Lake Road, it's a mess. Well, again, If they're gonna post no parking signs on city streets, there should be a policy of how that's handled, and they should have to jump through those hoops to do it, because I think, you know, it would be, I don't know. I was a little concerned about people just going out there and individually deciding, a personal, private property owner just deciding to post the city street no parking. They can't do it. That's right. But anyway, so.
Yeah, it's an iffy one. I mean, I hear your point, and I also go, yeah, but if the people pull off and they're parking on the people's property, I mean, you know, partially, then.
Well, they'll be parking on the right of way. So there's no problem.
But we don't necessarily, that's a whole other.
On that particular road, it's 66 feet. But the bottom line is it gets real congested and creates problems. So anyway.
Hey,
that's all.
motion to adjourn. Our next. So I'll just make the announcement here. Probably could do all of them, but I'll just do, August 19th is our next regularly scheduled council meeting at 7 p.m. Motion to adjourn. So, thank you very much. Have a good month.
We're not supposed to hit these anymore, Jonathan? Or turn them off?